Greetings, ladies and mental gents, and welcome to today's HFY one-shot double feature, written by LgFatherAnthrocite. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. The Accused. Is this for real? Yes, sir. This is ridiculous. How many species can make it to space without crossing off nearly every line on this list? They can't. It's just part of the political power play. If they can force us to admit culpability, then it makes them look better and knocks us down a peg. So it's only a way to count coup. Have they tried this before? Yes. Almost every member species has gone through this. Most usually make some sort of concession or use flowery language to make it sound like they apologized, without actually admitting anything. Who wasn't accused? Mostly the older member races who predate their admission to the GLQ. Okay, I'll take care of this. Do me a favor and register a time slot for us to respond. Make sure to mark it as a required attendance, and when it is finalized, post a press release to make sure that the press are present. Are you sure? It seems a bit reckless. I'm sure. Please take care of it. Yes, sir. The assembly hall was packed. Nearly every member species was represented, except for the Gerby, whose ship had been stranded a few light years away due to harmonic feedback in the compressor unit. The Chagriff were currently in the hibernation phase. The Terran ambassador walked up to the podium and waited for the room to quiet down. But the low, persistent buzz of the conversation subsided in a few moments, and the ambassador started to prepare his statement. Gentle beings of the GLQ, I come today to answer to the allegations of the impropriety by the residents of Earth, the human race. These allegations were brought against us by the Talaxian Collective. There was a low murmur as the other races considered how the Terrans would react and what would become of a bit of tradition in the GLQ. Seeing how the new member species responded to the traditional list of the Talaxian allegations would often provide insight to the nature and attitude of the species. The Terran Alliance will now read the allegations. We stand accused of widespread ecological destruction to our cradle planet. We stand accused of squandering our resources on our planet in the creation of machines and vessels destined to permanently leave our cradle world, thereby depriving future generations of said resources. We stand accused of propagating our species across multiple planets, planetoids, and natural satellites of our home star system. We stand accused of a broad spectrum of pollution of radio frequencies used by many species without license or permit. We stand accused of committing offensive actions to many member species during the process of initiation to the Galactic Legal Quorum. This concludes the list of allegations. Before I proceed to the rest of my statement, I would like to address the last allegation directly. I would like to personally apologize to any and all peoples of the GLQ whom I have personally offended, unintentionally or otherwise. I am sure that there have been occasions when my ignorance of protocol or culture have offended. Know that it was never my intention. I personally humbly beg for your forgiveness. Again, there was a brief moment of low conversation, as those in attendance considered the words of the ambassador of Earth. To admit his personal failings in public and on the record was a bold move. There were some who would take it for a sign of weakness, and others who would not trust them as authentic. But in general, it was well received. I will now respond to the allegations of the Talaxian Collective. We stand before you accused of ecological destruction, pollution on a wider galaxy, waste of our resources, and the violation of our home system to provide living space and resources for our continued expansion into the stars. We are guilty on all accounts. The room filled with chatter, the time louder and more agitated than before. After a few minutes, the Terran ambassador held up his hands and motioned for silence. Once everyone had settled, he continued his statement. We, the children of Earth, do not feel the Talaxian allegations are complete. We will now add some additional items to our people's list of crimes. Resource hoarding, child labor, corruption, starvation, physical and mental abuse, war, world war, nuclear war, nuclear proliferation, slavery, murder. Some of these are crimes that we have resolved. For some, there is simply no way to atone. We have, after many long and bloody struggles, finally unified as a species. We now protect those who are young and weak. We no longer need to squabble over land that possesses vital mineral resources. We tend to our cradle planet with care and work to undo the damage we caused. We outlaw slavery and hunt down those who perpetrate it. We do not always understand the consequences of our actions until it is too late. We are not perfect. We fail, but we learn our lessons. From slavery, we learn that everyone must be treated equally and with respect. From child labor, we learn that youth is a time to nurture the minds and bodies of the young, so that they may better fulfill their potential. From the environment, we learned that if we are not the masters of our planets, but the stewards of it. From war, we learned the price of hubris and the pain of loss. But we can promise you this. We will do better. We must. We will no longer squander lives and resources fighting amongst ourselves. We will continue to be the caretakers of our home world. We will continue to help those in need, to aid those in distress, to make progress towards the ideals of what humanity can become. Thank you for your time. Good day, gentle beings. Part 2. Heirloom. David Potter was a master craftsman, but making art wasn't going to pay the bills. He slung a lump of clay on a wheel and began to kick the base around and spin it. Using wet hands, he quickly formed a small vessel. He rolled the top edge, adjourning the shape, and with a few more spins to double-check his work, he nodded at his assistant, and it was done. It took him less than 20 minutes from start to finish. The journeyman potter would take a better part of an hour. His assistant stepped in with a bit of a string and sliced it off the wheel, placing it on a plank to dry. In a few days, the piece would set into a kiln, and for several days there would be little rest as they tended the fires. After splashing some water on the top of the wheel, David Potter slung another lump of clay onto the wheel. After a week of air drying, the pieces were loaded into a brick kiln. It was sealed with mud, and the fire was started. Several weeks later, after a week in the fired kiln, and a week to let it cool slowly, the mud was cracking off of the pottery and it was removed. There were, as always, a few that had shattered during the firing process, but the vast majority were fine. Most would be sold as is, a few would be glazed and refired. David took the top part off the stack, and he checked it for cracking and warping. It looked exceptionally fine, with a nice, smooth surface finish. He placed it back on the pile of pots to be glazed, and he went through and selected 24 pieces for glazing, and then told his assistant to bring the rest to the store. It had been a month since the initial firing, and now it was time to unseal the kiln again, and examine the freshly glazed pieces. He sorted through the pieces and selected a few of the personal delivery, and a few for the shop. The last piece he pulled was a pot, one of many. It had a strangely shaped pattern in the glaze, as it was near the vent and got inconsistent heat throughout the process. He set it aside. He would give it to his daughter. She was of marrying age, and it could be part of the dowry. "Grandma, where did the pot come from?" asked Samantha Smith, 8 years old, 3rd grade class of Smith Elementary, Dingobarn County, Georgia. "It's an old family heirloom. My great-great-grandmother brought it over with her from England when she came to America," said Betty Smith. "It's been in the family since it was made by my great-great-great-grandfather, David Potter. That's how some people got their last names, you know. It was what they did for a living. Imagine being Samantha Nurse, or Samantha Lawyer. Wouldn't that be funny?" "Grandma, you're silly," said Samantha with a giggle. Sarah Cooper was trying to decide what to bring. She had a personal weight allotment of 20 pounds. She was torn between an antique earthenware pot glazed in a rippled blue pattern, which had been in her family for nearly 350 years, and this beautiful hand-carved wooden horses that had been a wedding gift from an old college roommate. She looked back and forth between the two and finally decided that she would give the horses to her sister. The pot was going on a colony ship, and her sister would have the horse statues she adored to remember her sister by. Janice Potter was informed of the protocol at the very last minute. The Triclaxel custom dictated that the gift had to be a personal object, not something that was provided by governing bodies. It was a way to know who you were dealing with, as each item was gifted along with its story. Janice looked around the small cabin that she occupied on the diplomatic vessel. There were some tasteful yet simple clothes, a few personal toiletries, and a small collection of items that she had kept with her over the years. A small framed photo of her and her husband Bill, taken on their first date. A crudely made charm made by their daughter in school. A copy of her favorite book in hardcover and well thumbed. They all sat in a small glazed pot that she had gotten from her mother. She had taken to using it as a sort of catch-all for all the things that she wanted to keep around. She remembered the story her mother had told her of how the pot had got from England all the way out to the fourth quadrant of the galactic arm. This is the writing utensil my father had. The previous ambassador used it to sign a treaty between our people and the Skrull, ending a 120-year war and bringing a new age of peace to the galactic arm. It is made of a limb of the untranslatable tree plant, which he planted on the news of my birth. He made it himself. The Triclaxel ambassador held on a small item. It shone, almost silver, with organic curves. Janice placed her hands under his tentacle, and he placed it lightly in her hand. His smooth, leathery skin warmed to the touch and soft against her hands. She took a moment and examined the object. It was a polished smooth as glass in the places where the tentacle would have held it, and it was heavier than it looked. It clearly was a fine piece of craftsmanship, and had been well used and cared for. "I thank you for your gift. Allow me to reciprocate," she said. She could hear the strange owlish hooting that came from the translator. She placed an alien stylus on a small velvet-covered tray, and from the next she took the pot. This was made nearly 800 years ago, on the cradle world of my people. It was made by a man who is my direct ancestor, and it has passed from his hands to mine, in a single, unbroken chain of family that stretches back to before my people could fly, to now, when we fly amongst the stars. It was made of clay, the very soil of my planet. I have treasured it for many years, and it has traveled light years to get here. I hope it lasts as long in your family's care as it has in mine." The hooting stopped. The Triclaxel ambassador stood still. His eyes looked at the small pot. He waved to a nearby aide who rolled a small cart forward. He reached out slowly and placed his tentacles gently around the lip of the pot. He lowered it immediately to the cart's surface, but kept his limb wrapped around it. After a moment, he tore his eyes away and looked into Janice Potter's eyes. "I'm sorry. Have I done something wrong?" Janice asked, a little worried at the Sophon's response. "I am unworthy of such a gift. It is a thing that one would give to a queen. Such history, such personal bonds. I am, as I said, unworthy." Janice leaned in and placed her hand atop the tentacle and said, "I am sorry to have overstepped the limits of good taste in this exchange. Please forgive my ignorance. However, we are to be allies, and the Terran Collective does not make allies with those who are unworthy. Please treasure the pot as my family has done, and when the time comes, pass it on to your kin, and tell them it was a pot in which the seeds of peace and friendship were sown." And that, my friends, is the end of this double feature. I hope that you enjoyed. If you wish to support the channel, there are numerous ways to do so, listed down below. But the easiest way would be to share the channel like a zombie shares the plague, far and wide. Every share helps the channel grow. But until the next video, I hope that you all have a good one, and I'll see you then. Cheers.